There's a certain category of social media post that most churches shy away from, but I don't want you to be one of those churches, because when you exclude this type of post from your social strategy, not only will your church's social identity appear a lot more boring, but there are a trio of negative consequences you'll have to deal with. So in this video, I'll reveal what this category of social post is and why every church needs it.
Well, hey there, and welcome to Pro Church Tools, the show where in 10 minutes or less, you'll get a dose of tips and tactics to help your church share the message of Jesus while we navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. I'm your host, Alex Mills, joined as always by the boss man, Brady Shearer.
Alex, we launched our social media program for churches about a month ago.
Yeah.
Now we had it open for 7 days, hundreds of churches joined, and then we shut it down so that we could begin working with them.
Right.
And I was perusing through Facebook, as I tend to do, and I saw a Facebook thread of somebody asking, hey, what does everyone think of Pro Church Tools and Brady's social program now that it's been a little while? And a bunch of people that were using the program jumped in and showed all their results and talked about, all the positives that they've seen. And then I saw someone who actually sells their own social media posts jump in and say something that I thought was pretty interesting. Now, I didn't respond to that individual on that thread because it was a Facebook thread within a thread. I actually wrote something and I was like, you know what? We should just make this an actual episode of Pro Church Tools, because it's a question that I've seen not just from this person, but from a ton of people.
Yeah.
Now, I expect this question to come up a lot, and I expect churches to shy away from this type of post. I don't expect it from someone who actually sells social media to churches, because I think it kind of demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of how social works. Here's what the comment said. It said, some of the posts, talking about our social program, are just about something trivial to get people liking and commenting. I recommend telling a story with everything. And the key word there is trivial. This was in reference to our posts that are like, hey, if you had to eliminate one forever, fried chicken, steak, shrimp, or ribs, which one would you eliminate? And this person is saying...
It's ribs, man.
Ribs is the right answer, of course. Why would you do something like that? Like, that has nothing to do with the story of Jesus.
Right.
And I understand where they're coming from, but this is, again, the fundamental misunderstanding of how social works. I understand where you can come from, but we need to be smarter than that. Here are 3 reasons why these posts are so important, and why if you don't do these types of posts, fun, lighthearted posts that are not necessarily inherently quote-unquote spiritual, why if you don't do them, you'll actually suffer some of the consequences.
And if they're not, like you said, quote-unquote spiritual, that doesn't make them trivial. And
Absolutely.
This is why.
Number 1, start with a question. I'll ask you this question, Alex. Because you are a pastor, and your father is also a pastor. Both of you do preaching on Sundays. Have you ever told a joke or said something funny during a sermon? No, right, because that would disrespect the word of God. I'll answer for you. Or is that incorrect?
I do it all the time.
Now, why would you do that? Because I thought you liked the Lord.
Look, man, sometimes it's a general communication tool. Like, it's just best practice for communicating. And in church, it's kind of a long form type of communication, right? And so I've got 30 or 40 minutes. In your church, maybe it's 20, but we're Pentecostal, so maybe it's 40. But it's
I'll let that go.
We've got this long form type of storytelling. And so, I mix it up between telling a story, a historical context from the Bible, telling a joke here and there, just to mix it up. And to get a laugh, to get people involved and engaged in the conversation. So I use that kind of verbal literary tool all the time.
Right. And the reason is it earns attention, it keeps people smiling, it keeps them in a good mood, keeps them receptive for what's about to come next.
Yeah.
The difference between social and a long form, I love that word you use, long form communication medium like a sermon, and this is where the misunderstanding of social comes in, is that one is self-contained and long form, the other is short form, micro content that is inconsistent, meaning people aren't seeing your posts every single day. The algorithm just doesn't work that way. Very few are going to see every single post. And this is why with social, because it's so short form, because it's micro content, some of the stuff you're going to be doing is inviting prayer and encouraging prayer. Sometimes it's going to be Bible reading. We shared 5 different templates that we were kind of revealing new ways to do social. 4 of them were driving spiritual practice, and 1 of them was that more fun one. Yeah. So we're not saying do this all the time. 1 out of 5, maybe just sprinkle it in here and there. Because if you don't, if all you ever do is be serious, not only will it misunderstand how social works, because that's just not the way it's intended to be, and we'll talk about the consequences of it in just a bit, but it also, in my experience, is incongruent with who you are as a person or as a church. This is number 2. Let me ask you another question. Think about your staff culture, your small group culture, your lobby culture. If you're in a small group, if you are there during the weekdays with your staff and church leaders, or if you're just in the lobby listening to people talk, Is it always quote unquote spiritual talk?
Right. Like we're not exegeting the book of Job when I first get to church and I'm catching up with, John, asking him how his week is. Right. Like it's just it's general like banter. We're talking back and forth. I'm asking him how his kids are. We're telling jokes, we're laughing, we're having a good time. And that's the human experience.
And we want to show the holisticness
Yes.
of the human experience on social. If your experience in the lobby, in a small group, in staff is not 100% serious, because it's not. There's fun moments, there's lighthearted moments, there's joking. If you're not doing that same thing on social, you're being incongruent. We talk about authenticity. This doesn't seem like it, but that's you being inauthentic. It's you pretending that everything has to be spiritual all the time. That's not how you are as a person, I don't think.
Right.
That's not how you are as an organization, I don't think. If your pastor's ever told a joke during a message, that means that they're not that way. If you've ever had a congregation laughing, that means that you're not that way.
Right.
So you need to be congruent with your social identity. Otherwise, that's inauthentic. Again, we don't really think of that as being inauthentic. We think of inauthentic as the spiritual part. No, it's actually being inauthentic to not show the fullness of the human experience. And then thirdly, when it comes to performance on social, this is the most important. The algorithms are always watching. I want to show you an example of one of the people using our social program. They posted on the third day of our social program an elimination post. It was that exact same one. Which one are you going to choose to eliminate forever? Fried chicken, ribs, shrimp, or steak? And they got 70 comments on that post. Small church, more comments than they had ever received on Facebook in more than 2 years. What does that do? It signals to the social algorithms that people are interacting with this person. When the algorithms changed, and it's not a chronological newsfeed anymore, it's performance-based. What are people liking? Mark Zuckerberg changed the algorithm at the beginning of 2018 and says it's about meaningful interaction. That's what this is. It's people having fun, and they're more likely to engage when you make an irresistible, quote-unquote, trivial, not so trivial post, because that means for the future, and this is where the benefit comes in. When people are interacting with that post, they're more likely to see the next one.
There it is.
It's the same reason you tell the joke. Because you get their attention, you get them in a good mood, and the next time they see a post, or the next part of the sermon where the pastor gets really quiet and he gets closer to his mic and he whispers, "And that's why the Lord came." You've already got them listening. And on social, they're already paying attention, or at least they have the opportunity to pay attention because the social algorithm hasn't penalized you for being so darn serious all the time.
Right. Well, and therein lies that fundamental misunderstanding that you alluded to earlier. It's easy to look at a post like this and say, well, there's no spiritual value to this. And if that post was to stand alone, sure, that's true. But we recognize that the church is in possession of the greatest story ever told. We have this message of Jesus, of hope in Jesus, that we are all trying to share. And attention is the most valuable commodity that we possess as a church. But if the algorithms don't see people interacting with your page, when you do go to share that message of Jesus, they're not going to put it in front of your followers. And so using posts like this to identify with the human experience of having fun and joking around and playing a fun elimination game, you also get to trigger those algorithms and say, and tell them, this is a page worth interacting with. So that when you do share that message of Jesus, it's being shown to the people that are following you.
3 points to quickly summarize. These fun posts, these guessing game posts, these elimination posts. We'll do it in reverse order. Number one, they tell the algorithms the right things. You're playing by the rules, which means more people get to hear the message of Jesus. Without them, you're going to see penalties because it's just human nature to respond more to the fun stuff, right? That's why we always talk about that, that stereotype, the cat meme on Twitter. We see it everywhere. Why? Because it's just so easy. And then number two, it's inauthentic to pretend that being serious all the time on social is the way it's meant to be. Unless you're serious 100% of the time in person, don't be inauthentic and incongruent with your social identity as a church. And then number three, understand that social is micro content. You have to do things bit by bit by bit. It's not long form where you can include an entire narrative from beginning to end all in one post. It's got to be these bit by bit. Some are going to be super serious. Some will be super fun. Some will be in between. But as followers, seeing that day after day, month after month, you're telling a story over the course of months and years. And that's what social is with its micro content.
So good.
And that'll do it for this episode of Pro Church Tools. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching the video. Now subscribe to the channel so you don't miss another video.
And after you subscribe to that channel and you start to see all the videos, you need to like all the videos, like this video, that video, that video, that video, all the videos.